Educating students in rural settings is an important part of public education in America. More than half of all school districts and a third of all public schools are in rural areas. According to the National Center for Education Statistics, over 12 million students attend a rural public elementary or secondary school, accounting for 25% of all public school students. Unrecognized by most Americans and often overshadowed by the nation's attention to dropout challenges in urban settings, more than 1/5 of public schools in rural America have higher than average dropout rates. Because of their remote locations and more limited resources, schools in rural communities often have less access to high-quality technical assistance than schools in other communities. For this reason, the U.S. Department of Education's High School Graduation Initiative program provided dropout prevention support and technical assistance to grantees and districts across the country. This video highlights dropout prevention efforts in rural districts and schools in Iowa. The state of Iowa is challenged with a unique climate in an effort to reverse dropout rates inside rural communities. According to the 2010 census data, nearly 36% of the state's population is rural. The State Department of Education aims to reduce the dropout rates in these communities through a variety of programs. However, it is the emphasis on relationships that appears to be the key component to retain at-risk students and see them graduate.
In Iowa, we have multiple funding streams to provide assistance to high school students, and one of them is our modified supplemental amount, which the priorities are for recovery, reentry, and re-engagement, and working with potential dropouts at the high school and middle school levels to re-engage students to bring them back to the high school, and then provide a broad range of options for students. And it doesn't have to be expensive things. It can be building relationships, it could be mentoring, it could be working on internships, it can be making connections in the home, school, and community, providing service learning, work experience, school-to-work type activities, which was really key in our IS3 grant. And we really tried to tie in, one of the key aspects of that grant was the adult-student relationships, and that building those will increase your climate and culture in your building, which will make intentional relationship building a focus, looking at data, finding out who the kids are that might most be at risk.
What we learned as we did the survey that was part of Iowa Safe and Supportive Schools was that adult-student relationships was really an area that Iowa students were challenged on. We had 21 schools that participated, and that was the lowest area for all of them. So based on the index, we knew that student-adult relationships was where we needed to start, and that certainly has to do with re-engaging and re-enrolling students. It just was a natural fit.
So we started there and had some wonderful people facilitate workshops for our schools, and at those workshops they brought a team of people. So they had administrators, teachers, maybe a guidance counselor, a parent, brought together a diverse group so that they could hear everyone's voice, and didn't always bring students, but always made sure that the student voice was represented in a youth leadership team at the building level. So one of the biggest things really was for the adults to go back and ask the students, what would it look like for an adult to care about you? If you were to answer, I agree, that an adult cares about me, what would they be doing? So that really was a starting point, was getting more data from the students.
And I think when we looked at the data and the survey results, there was a strong difference between what the students reported their experience was and how connected they were with adults in the building, and how the adults in the building thought that they were connected with the students. So there was a gap there, and so that's why that drilling down and going back and saying, you know, what does respect look like for you? What does a caring relationship look like for you? We were fortunate at the beginning stages of the grant that we partnered with ISU Extension 4-H that helped to provide training on positive youth development and adult youth partnerships, so that adults had a better understanding of the importance of youth voice, that the students in the building wanted to be partners in their education and had a lot of great ideas and on how to improve the conditions for learning.
We can be very data rich and information poor. And I've got all this data, what do I do with it? And what the IS3 grant has done, and our dropout prevention intentional work, has been about, what is that data? What does it look like? What can you do with that data? The IS3 grant really trained the districts and the AEAs to look at the data, to do some root cause analysis. What is the story of these children? Where do we go from here?
And making the connection between what the data was really saying needed to happen and then having action steps or strategies that matched. And what we found in the beginning was that when that was just adults making those decisions, they always thought the students had to change. And they didn't really see things that they needed to be doing differently. And it was a real process as we continued to put the focus on what are students saying needs to happen in order to get better outcomes. Then the adults finally came around, oh, we need to do things differently, and then we'll get different results.
So sometimes it's that feeling too that staff has, that I'm already doing so much and you're asking me to do one more thing. So just trying to raise their awareness of how this is really beneficial for them, get that buy-in so that they're willing to jump on board and say, yep, this sounds like a great thing, let's try this. The difference that I think the grant has made is just to raise awareness of how important that relationship is, to offer some support for those that maybe struggle, and just to keep it in the teachers' minds about how important it is and the difference that you can make, that really that relationship is the basis for learning. And if you don't have that, then learning really, it just doesn't take place. When we started the grant, one of the huge components of the grant was to have a youth leadership team to get the student voice, because we're trying to design programs and efforts to help the students, and the best way to find out what's going to help them is to get their opinion and their input. So we invited 16 students, 4 from each grade level, and it's totally optional. We've never had a student say no, and every year we always say, all right, you don't have to do this year, and we've never had students say, nope, I just don't want to do this anymore. So I feel like they think that it's a very valuable experience.
Freshman year, we came into this group, and Mrs. Pratt says that we have a grant, and then to help our school and its whole environment and make children actually want to come to school and not make them be forced to be here. We've been taking Iowa youth surveys to see how we're growing as a school, and we've been increasing ever since.
We come together every 2 Fridays, and we talk about what we see that's going on at school and what we can change.
A big part of youth leadership team is just trying to get our school to unite just as one and not have any cliques. So we're trying to build that support back up.
We're trying to show that we recognize that the teachers recognize the students are trying their best and doing what they can to move on.
I had got a mail, on the mail I got a card of a teacher that I really didn't have good communication with. But ever since that letter, we got closer, and it's easier for me to talk to them now and ask questions during class or just a comment. For me, that helped a lot. And for my other friends that are like the quiet ones, they feel more comfortable in the classroom with that teacher.
In any classroom, you have a student that maybe you have a little trouble connecting with a student, or maybe you just don't get along. We tried it's called a 2x10 strategy. And so the 2x10 is for 2 minutes a day, for 10 days in a row, you just try to have a conversation. As long as it's positive about anything, just to start building that conversation back and forth between that student, with the hopes that after that 10 days that you at least have some kind of knowledge of the student and they have some kind of knowledge of you, and you start to build a conversation and open up a communication line.
I was falling behind my freshman year since I slacked off a lot. I was really behind credits. I did think about like not coming to school anymore because there was no way for me to catch up. So Miss Wolf had told me, well, there's Play-Doh classes that you should take. But I had heard about Play-Doh classes that they were really hard. I mean, it takes hours to finish the classes, but you really got to dedicate yourself to it. It was hard. I didn't want to do it, but it's a good opportunity to get caught up in your credits.
As soon as in the first semester, if a student has failed a class, they're immediately invited to come and join this Why Try class. It's a regularly scheduled class. It fits right into their day. They get credit for it. And it's not mandatory. They have the option to say, no, I don't want to do this. But basically what it is just a class to try to get them to build some skills that maybe they're lacking that other students do. Resiliency skills, how to bounce back from when things don't go your way. So Why Try is really just about helping them figure out ways to overcome those obstacles so they can bounce back from those hardships in life.
One of my close friends, she was in it last semester, and she always told me when we sat down and talked, she always told me how that going with that teacher and other students, she didn't feel lonely because she knew she wasn't the only one that was going through those problems. And now her grades are just going up so fast. That's really impressive what that program has done to her.
We talked about why you should try in school, why it is good for you, and why you need a high school education and that diploma, and what you would be needing it for later on. Like, I was like, no, like, there's no point of me trying in school. I don't think I need it. But she pointed all the good things out why you would need it, and she stuck through my side and everybody else's side saying, like, this is why you should do it. She makes all the students feel really important, and that's what I like, she made me feel like maybe I could do something, and maybe I should keep trying, and I could be better than what I am doing now. It motivates you to do better than what you were doing.
I think everyone could benefit in one way or another from the individual attention, because it's the attention they need, and they could ask questions without feeling bothered in case they don't like talking in front of crowds or their classmates. I think they're great.
Yes.
I think we should incorporate them more and possibly get a few more students into those programs if we can, because I know we have a Why Try, and it's working out pretty good. Everybody
knows everybody at the school. And if they don't have a good communication with the teacher and like to tell them, oh, this would look good, they tell us, and then we bring it together when we have a meeting, and then we just talk about it, and we bring out the data, and we just talk about what we hear out there that they are so afraid to tell the elders.
Yeah, I feel like if we didn't have the youth leadership team, our score as an overall school wouldn't have went anywhere, wouldn't have went down, wouldn't have went up. I feel like we would have just stayed the same, which is something we don't want. We want to increase.
We show the students that there are students who know what's going on, and they know that people need help. I'd say it gives them hope because we're here. They know we're here, and we're willing to help them without a second thought.
We always hear the teachers, and I feel like the youth leadership team is the voice of the students, and we make the students know, like, you guys will be heard.
A lot of what we do is driven by our data that we get from our survey. So we look at our survey data, see where we're lacking, see where we have improvements that can be made, and then we really just get the students' input. All right, what are we going to do about this? What can we do to fix this? Our adult-to-student relationship is when we first started looking at that information. It was the lowest thing. It was my teachers let me know when I'm doing a good job. My teachers care about me. Those were the two questions we looked at. And those were our lowest of everything. And so that's why we focused on those. And that has steadily increased the last 3 years. Our overall index has increased the last 3 years. The adult-to-student relationship has increased the last 3 years. Also, the students, when we have them take the survey, we ask them to thoughtfully consider the questions. Don't just rush through them, think about them. And when we get to that question about, there's at least one person in this school, that an adult that I can talk to. And so I always say, you know, when you think about these questions, when you read them, don't think about that teacher that maybe you have the problem with. Think about all your teachers, all the adults that you come into contact with. So just having them slow down and think about those things, I think that's important too, because we all tend to kind of just rush through things, especially teenagers. And when they're really thoughtfully considering, well, yeah, you know, I can go talk to this person or this person, I think they're realizing then too that there are people out there for them, and making them aware too. I think awareness is key.
The state of Iowa has utilized such grants as the IS3 grant to foster the relationship between teacher and student. In many cases, it requires a complete change in the mindset and culture of the administration, faculty, and students in order to make meaningful, progressive steps towards dropout prevention. But what about the students that leave school and choose to come back to finish? Recovery has also become an increasingly large component in the use of grant funds, while still maintaining an emphasis on building meaningful relationships.
In 2010-2011, Davenport had the highest dropout rate in the state. We started out with a 10.2, and that's when Davenport said, wait a minute, we need to do something about this. So we started looking at our data to say, who are the kids that were missing, who are the kids that are dropping out. We started looking at ways to recover students, to re-engage them back into school.
I couldn't figure out how you could have 10,000 office referrals and suspensions. There were 234 suspensions in a school year with maybe 200 students. I had just heard those types of things, so we started looking at, okay, what causes the, us to have with all these office referrals. Tedra and I were just kind of brainstorming what can make a difference, and one of the things was that students needed to feel excited and proud about being at that building, rather than thinking it was someplace they were dumped or that they had to be at.
The Kimberly Center had a bad reputation, not only for the students attending. They're like, oh, we're in the bad school, but even in the community. So I think we worked really hard on changing that reputation, that this is a school, this is an alternative school, and the kids here are going to do well. We have high expectations. They're going to follow the same curriculum as the rest of the district has. And so I think that was a good start.
Davenport as a whole has an email that goes out every week showing which kids are on the early warning system based on attendance, on grades, on behaviors, on different factors. What I love about our district too is that they're responsive to the individual needs of a building, and so I worked with our, because all of our kids are basically on that in some way or another, and so I've asked for more specifics, and I've called down to our district office and I said, here's what I want, and talked to a data guru down there. As I said, I want to know how many days they've missed last week, and so he kind of worked with me so that I not only have the district's early warning system, but they provided another report that I use called our failure tracker, which then we pull up and we go through weekly and use that to with our support staff, saying, okay, where are we with this week? How many kids, what's our percentage of kids that are passing classes, where are they struggling, and why? And then we choose kind of intervention strategies based on that. The grant has made all the difference. One of the key pieces of the grant has been the personnel that we've been able to hire with those funds, which has included case managers, an additional support person in our APEX, which is our online learning supports credit recovery classroom. But those supports have really bridged the gap with the relationships with our students.
And I think really worked on changing the culture and climate of the building to make one of trust and respect and high expectations, not just for the students, but for the staff as well, all around.
We wanted, again, students to be at a place where they were proud of, and just because you maybe learn differently or have an alternative lifestyle, it doesn't mean that you again have a right to be judged. We came up with this process so that students filled out an application, and then I sat down with every one of them. And that was at the very beginning, and trying to get them all in one at a time with a parent. They had to bring a parent or a guardian with them, and we would just talk about where they were, what they were going to do with their lives, all that stuff.
And then they would leave the meeting, and we'd say, we'll review this, and we'll let you know if you're accepted. And so you would hear, and I've heard kids say, oh, I got accepted at Kimberly Center. So it made it special to them. And I just think that was so personal to meet with the principal. Usually the counselor was involved in that as well. And so right away, they had made a connection, a relationship at that time.
And with the parent as well. Mm-hmm. And we set the expectations of everything.
Well, I mean, I didn't really think school was for me when I first started in my 9th grade year. I didn't really understand things as much as everybody else did. So I was kind of like behind than everybody else, since there's so many kids at West, you know, there's 42 kids per class, you know, so it's kind of stressful to have that many kids in there. And then, you know, I came here and like, this was more one-on-one learning. I don't have to sit there and raise my hand and wait for a teacher, you know, they just come straight over to me and ask me if I need help before I even say anything, you know, like they're very, very like hands-on, like they like to be there with you and go through the steps with you instead of just like giving you a curriculum or a worksheet and saying, get this done, you know, it's a lot better. I like it a lot more.
I've been told ever since, well, middle school that I should go to Kimberly Center, but yeah, I wasn't sure. But when I went there, it was most definitely a good thing that I went there. Yeah, because teachers, they actually talk to me one-on-one instead of, you know, because like in a normal school, you get left behind in the classroom and it's just gets too much build up.
I can definitely, without a doubt, say that relationships in our school have evolved immensely. There's no doubt about it. Student-to-teacher relationships are much closer, and I feel like the students are able to relate to the teachers and be able to talk to the teachers more, and it shows through our data.
What the data told us from the first survey was that the students felt that there was not a lot of positive relationships happening, personal positive relationships with their teachers happening. The staff felt that the relationships were okay. They felt better about them than the students did. The parents of the students here have maintained a pretty average opinion about those relationships throughout the life of the grant.
Mr. Nielsen was honestly my favorite teacher when I first started coming here, and he teaches math, and math is one of my worst subjects. I'm very, very bad at math. He really kind of took me under his wing and kind of showed me the easier way to do math and explained it to me in a certain way that only I could understand, you know, instead of like the same way he teaches everybody else. And he knows my name, you know, he's real close to me. Like, I feel like he's kind of like a father figure in a way, the way he teaches, you know, the way he talks to me.
The students do crave something that's beyond, you know, their name and their grade. They want to know something personal about the teacher, and they want the teacher to know something personal about them.
When that relationship is the foundation, when we see them with full respect, not as someone that we look down to, but someone that we communicate with as a fellow human being, our students respond to that and will tell us more about what's going on.
Usually when bad things happen, you hear about them, right? Oh, you got a detention. Oh, you got an in-school suspension. At Central, we not only, I mean, obviously you have that type of repercussion for bad behavior, but you have repercussion for good behavior as well. We started a Something Good is Happening at Central card, and that is directly mailed to the parents, you know, the household. And so when teachers notice something good, they have their Something Good is Happening card, and they, you know, write down what's going on, and then they just directly send it to the household.
All of the indicators for kids who are in danger of dropping out, and what can we do to prevent those kids, first of all, as they are looking at dropping out or as they're starting to struggle, what can we do, what supports can we put into place to get those kids the supports that they need to be able to reach graduation.
We started talking about this yesterday. I want to talk about it some more today.
We're only here to make the students successful, so what is it that we can do? That's what our jobs are here. And so we kind of just started changing it around to where when they would focus on the negativity of a student, on something negative about a student, I would say, nope, don't get to blame the students. We have to come up with something that we can do to make the students successful or to fix this problem, but we don't get to blame the students. So we just started rolling that direction.
What can we do here? We can't always change their home life. We can remove some of the barriers, but what can we do in the building to help the students? Because sometimes it's easy to say, well, it's because of this or it's because of that. Well, we can't change that, but what can we do once they're in our building to make them feel this is where they need to be, this is where we want them to be.
We wanted the teachers to be able to focus on teaching and let us, or our case managers, and thank goodness because of this grant we had them, we said, if you will teach and teach to the point where you know students want to be in your classroom no matter what, we'll take care of the other stuff. And that made a difference too, because I think that teachers were feeling like they needed to deal with this and this, but really their focus needs to be on great teaching. So.